Okay, this is going to be a promotion video about a video series that I'm going to be doing very soon. Without a doubt, I'm going to finish two series first, and I'm going to try to sum these series up pretty quickly because the next level of information carries us forward with the continuation of where we've left off in the last series. So each series is flowing into the next series where we left off from the last place. But we still have to finalize the series Ye Are Gods and the connection with the gold, the monatomic gold, this particular 44% of it that disappears, as would be quoted, into this field of Sharon. Now we're going to see that that is going to be perfectly equivalated with this 44 being connected to false Israel, even being further connected to the presidency of the United States, the 44th president, how they plan on disappearing, which will completely fulfill the fractal of this understanding, even the scientific process of how this monatomic gold is formed. I mean, it's just absolutely astounding. Absolutely astounding. And as you see, it works with everything that has taken place on this channel that has happened in a supernatural way. And these things continually happen supernaturally. But I guess a lot of people just don't want you guys to understand that. And I don't have no way to explain it. All I can do is tell you the truth of what I know of it, and that all of this is taking place by the power of the Spirit of Truth, plain and simple. So, about this 44% and all of this stuff in connection about the wheat and the tares being burnt in the fire is all going to come together. All of this is going to come together. And I'm going to show you in this video now how what people are teaching you about this parable of the sower from Matthew chapter 13. So important why this is taking place on chapter 13, as it's associated absolutely with Ephraim, the 13th tribe of Israel, of which is connected to the 44, of which is the leader of northern Israel, which is also associated with 44. And if anybody wants to see a more unique understanding of this 44, you should watch a video series I did entitled Divide and Conquer 44. And there you will see the connections with these horns that are spreading Jerusalem, Israel, and Judah across the globe, like we saw in Zechariah. So let's get to the point here, because wow, man, I honestly can tell you that I'm pretty freaked out. I don't want to use that word, but this is just all, for me, I just don't, I just am always amazed at how this happens. I'm just always amazed at how this happens. Let's look at something here that has everything to do with the wheat and the tares that are being divided, that is already here in this drawing. And I've been looking at it and talk about it and showing it to you guys for over a year now, but I have yet to fully understand this portion. Now I do. This is going to come down, like I said, with the parable of the wheat and the tares. You should know right off the bat that these tares and the wheats that are being divided unto this fire, and that the other portion is divided unto the gathering of this barn, which is very, very interesting. But what you have to begin to see here right away is that Jesus is not the one burning the tares that you see in the parable of the sower that's associated with the sinners of mankind. We're going to see here correctly by Jesus Christ's own words that is the devil. And it says, "And the Lord said, Simon, Simon, behold, Satan hath desired to have you, that he may sift you as wheat. But I have prayed for thee, that thy faith fail not. When thou art converted, strengthen thy brethren." Now, this admonishment goes beyond the current age of which Simon is finding himself in, and moves forward into the ending of the age of which we're in now. "And Simon, Simon, behold, Satan hath desired to have you, that he may sift you as the wheat." Now, many people teach this parable that we're going to find in Matthew 13, that this parable is going to fully explain the truth of it all. What I've already explained from all the other verses and places in the Bible, and video series from every imaginable direction that you could possibly think of. It's all telling you the same thing, that Jesus Christ wants mercy and not this sacrifice. But what's unique about this parable of the tares and the wheat is that Jesus Christ is going to give us exactly what the association is of this wheat and this tare, and that when this true burning of the true tares is going to take place, and it's going to take place at the end of the world. Now, that's going to be highly relative, because when we begin to look at Revelation, we're going to find out an astounding fact, a very astounding fact. And let us keep in mind at this point that I'm going to go into a greater depth of truth, and we're going to bring many, many more scriptures to the surface. And as you should already understand, that this already perfectly flows with everything that I've already brought to the table so far. This is just a further explaining of this understanding of this fire from the sky that Jesus Christ has been speaking out against, this supposed stone that has come to destroy these sinners of mankind. Now, there is always a higher reflection, of which you know the Bible is double. They seek to fulfill materially what is to take place spiritually. And Jesus Christ is also referred to as that stone, even the stone that the builder refused. But as we see that this stone, as he returns, is aimed only at these spiritual tares, which is associated with spiritual Babylon, which is also known as ecclesiastical Babylon. So with that in place, you should begin to understand how Revelation is starting to unfold. Let me briefly just explain what I said about Babylon in its ecclesiastical manifestation. Ecclesiastic means religious or spiritual. And this ecclesiastical Babylon would be associated with mystery Babylon, or these mystery schools, these mystery religions. In other words, everything that these secret societies are upholding within their agendas. We know, as I've already showed and covered and will cover again and show it again to make it clear, that there are two Babylons. Just as Revelation 18 declares, Babylon give unto her double according to her works, the cup which she had filled, fill unto her double. There's going to be two fires that are brought against Babylon. That's exactly right. And I have already hinted in other videos before how that he who kills with a sword must be killed with a sword. We know that there's two swords. One is the living word, the water word of Jesus Christ. of the fallen prince, aimed at mankind, the children, the creation of God, will also suffer this same wrath from the sword. They are going to bear the burden of their own stone throwing. And I can show you the verses, and I will show you the verses. They're very plain as day verses. And keep this in mind with what I'm about to show you right here. This is the fire that Jesus refers to in the parable of the tares that comes at the end of the world, that is going to destroy the true tares that are associated, as I've already told you, with Lucifer, Satan, and the devil. Lucifer, Satan, and the devil, well, we take this titled acronym of LSD, and you immediately get this illusion, this association with hallucination that you're going to see I've described and felt was the true meaning of these mushrooms, which are going to fulfill itself with this understanding of the wheat and the tare, as it all connects to this word ergot, E-R-G-O-T. And these people that are in these secret societies and are a part of these false doctrines have been talking about this ergot fervently for some time now, like it's some sort of inside information that they're only privy to. Well, my friends, we soon are about to all be privy to this understanding of the ergot, how it's associated with hallucination, how it is really connected with the fullness of the revelation of the true tare that's going to be burnt in the fire that Jesus Christ brings to destroy the true iniquitous ones that would be associated with the sons of perdition, of which we already covered in his declaration for my video series entitled Divine Forgiveness Like You've Never Heard. He says he's not going to lose a single one except the sons of perdition. And that would be Lucifer, Satan, and the devil. This is who you see being associated with at the end of the world, of having this fire come down from heaven. Verse 9 of Revelation 20. And they went up on the breadth of the earth and compassed the camp of the saints. Remember the association with the compass and Freemasonry, right? There's a little bit more there than just that generalized description, but we'll save that as we move forward into the video series. And they went up on the breadth of the earth and compassed the camp of the saints about, the beloved city, and fire came down from God out of heaven and devoured them. This is talking about false Israel. This is talking about the devil, their antichrist that they bring into material form. As you see that at the end of Revelation, here is that true fire from God that is not necessarily still how you might perceive it, because you have to understand that this fire from God is a part of the order of his universal system, of which we see this universal system has a connection of astrological events that are set to unfold within our age, of which these people are trying to deny you access of understanding, and at the same time they seek to stage an event beforehand that makes it appear that this is the natural event, when in all actuality they are the ones that cause this fire from the sky that comes down upon New York City, that so many people are trying to associate with this Elijah and these two witnesses that are about to bring this judgment against Babylon. Well, the judgment against Babylon is commercial Babylon, being represented by New York City, being represented by that Apple, being represented by that Broadway, being represented by Times Square, the very heart of commercial Babylon itself. And we see that it's not God that is seeking to destroy commercial Babylon, that it's actually the kings of the earth themselves. And even more particular, the kings of the earth that are considered these 10 horns. They're the ones that are seeking to destroy commercial Babylon. Listen closely here as I reveal chapter 17 of Revelation in this light of understanding. Let's go ahead and start reading here at verse 15. And he saith unto me, the waters which thou sawest, where the whore sitteth, are peoples, multitudes, and nations, and tongues. And the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, these shall hate the whore, and shall make her desolate and naked. Remember all those buzzwords with desolation associated with the salt pits and this nakedness that we see in the coded media? And then all of these supposed agents on YouTube are doing nothing but reporting this coded media BS. And at the same time, they're going to try to all tell you that the media is working with the man, but yet they're going to give you all of these coded media stories as the truth and for the proof of what they're saying. BS. They're trying to keep you all preoccupied from understanding the truth. The truth ain't happening on the news. The truth ain't happening on CNN. But the truth is happening right here. And the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, these shall hate the whore, and shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh, and burn her with fire. For God hath put in their hearts to fulfill this will, and to agree, and give their kingdom unto the beast, unto this fallen prince, until the words of God shall be fulfilled, until the true kingdom of God is fulfilled. So we see here that this fire in Revelation chapter 20, verse 9, that you see is exclusively aimed at the devil and his close associates, is not the same fire that you see here being quoted with the destruction of Babylon in Revelation 17, verse 17. Because when they describe this whore of Babylon, when they describe this city, and even by describing the 10 horns, what are they telling you with the 10 horns? Well, remember, Ephraim is a horn, Manasseh is a horn, Deuteronomy chapter 33, I think it is. And of course, I've showed you the Iraqi dinar. Of course, you've seen all the other verses that quote them as being the horns, like the horns of unicorns, pushing them together from the ends of the earth. And then you've seen all the understanding that I did with the videos describing the horn as associated to this enlightenment. And then when you look at the capital of the United States, known as the dome of the White House or the dome of the head of Ephraim, and you see the very same horn or the very same lightning rod as Satan fell like lightning, and they're trying to catch every message that he sends, the 10 horns are the 10 tribes of northern Israel. They are the nations, the multitudes, and the tongues of the world that Jacob in chapter 48 and 49 prophesies that Ephraim himself would become. Ephraim is the leader of the 10 tribes. More importantly, he's the leader of the 10 northern tribes. And more importantly, he is considered a horn of a unicorn by the Bible's own words. So it is these 10 horns that seek to burn commercial Babylon with fire in an attempt to give this kingdom unto the beast. Exactly right. So as we would go now to Revelation chapter 13. Wow. As we said, that's Ephraim. Ephraim's the 13th tribe of Israel. And we go to chapter 13, verse 13. Wow, woe unto Babylon, give her double. And he doeth great wonders, so that he maketh fire come down from heaven on the earth in the sight of men, and deceiveth them that dwelleth on the earth by the means of those miracles which he had the power to do in the sight of the beast, saying to them that dwell on the earth that they should make an image of the beast, which had by the wound by the sword and did live. Well, we know that that beast was sealed, and sealed by the living word of Jesus Christ, which is the sword of Jesus Christ. The beast here that is seeking to deceive is the fallen one. And the one that brings this fire down from heaven upon the earth is none other than his strong rod, Ephraim. Right there. So we have 2 fires that come down against Babylon. One against commercial Babylon that is brought about by Babylon itself. Just as you see Babylon seeking to expose itself, as they are readily exposing themselves now, and then trying to change their spots like the true leopard predators they are. They can't stand against it. City, the very same great city of Revelation chapter 11, is the very same fire that we see here being talked about in Revelation 17, verse 17, being brought down against that city that is going to be commercial Babylon. Now, you remember, weren't the true spiritual peoples of God captive at Babylon in various times, and that the prophets have sought to bring them out of Babylon? That's right. We are still captive in Babylon, and there are prophets and seers still trying to bring you out of Babylon's confusion. So in the parable of the sower, you'll understand that Jesus Christ correctly says that you cannot do this now, because if you try to destroy the tares who are sown amongst the true wheat, you risk destroying them all. In this wisdom of the parable, you'll see what that means in association with Revelation chapter 20 about that fire at the end of the age. So this fire here that is taking place before this fire that is brought forth in connection with the destruction of LSD, which is going to be further connected to this Ergot, which is going to be the Satan, which has sown these tares amongst the wheat. All of this is going to make perfect sense when you begin to understand this Ergot's association with blackness, even with cancerous growth. There's our timing for the month of Cancer. This blackness is even going to connect further to these beings being known and associated with these shadow agents, connected as shadow agents themselves. All of this is going to open up and hinge on this picture here of these two mushrooms, of which you see this Satan person, the S on the cape, representing this evil faction that we see correctly identified in the parable of Matthew chapter 13 out of the words of Jesus Christ's mouth, that Satan is the one that has soweth the tares amongst the wheat, and that we see that these mushrooms are now going to fulfill themselves with the understanding of Ergot causing this hallucination, Ergot being this contamination of the wheat, and then it's even going to reflect how they see it and how they seek to burn the supposed tares of which they call, which in reality, the tares to them are the true believers in Jesus Christ. Yep, they're running the mirror hard. But the Spirit of Truth has given some of us some amazing, amazing tools of spirit sight to help us along the way. Now, let me just let you see here once again that it's these 10 horns. As I've already told you, Ephraim is the leader of the northern 10 tribes of Israel. These 10 horns, Ephraim is considered a horn, even a horn of a unicorn. The circle with the dot in the center, if you Google it, is the symbol for Lucifer. It's even going to come up as a symbol for the horn of a unicorn. Even going to do that for you. There ain't no stopping this. There ain't no stopping it. There ain't no stopping it. So we got two fires coming from the sky. One coming from the 10 horns to utterly burn with fire that great city of which they have created themselves as the sacrificial place for the sinners, of which we know are the believers in Jesus Christ, as it's associated with the place name of Golgotha, city of the skull, where they sought to crucify Jesus. Now the symbolic representation is of the same thing that they seek to crucify the believers of Jesus Christ. Now, New York doesn't necessarily mean, by them bringing this destruction there, that it's where the believers of Jesus Christ are. No, it's where the trigger event will be started to begin the process for the division and the burning of these tares from the wheat. But of course we know that it's the bastardized false version of this parable of truth, of which you've already seen me easily show you just throughout this understanding of Revelation and these fires that you see that the 10 horns bring, now you see that the fire that is associated with Revelation chapter 13 that's coming upon this great city is exactly as I said it to you as, and that it's coming from the moon. We're going to find more about that as we look into the rest of the series about the Elijah fire, as we break down Shinar, the connections with Joshua, the connections with Ephraim, the connections with Ezekiel 19, that dry and thirsty ground that's even going to connect back to that drawing I got of that man on the moon with the rocket and a camel right beside him. And you wait till I show you what the camel symbol is going to mean in a biblical way. How it connects with the verses from Zechariah about what they're bringing there. This connection with bringing water to the moon, the water breaking, the second cup, the woman in travail, the birth, the water, all of it, all of it, all of it. So don't worry if everything I'm saying just seems like a lot of stuff coming at you. Let me just simply let Jesus clarify it for you real quick here. Once again, verse 20 or verse 22 of the book of Luke, or chapter 22, excuse me, I always do that. Chapter 22, verse 31 of the book of Luke. And the Lord said, Simon, Simon, behold, Satan hath desired to have you, that he may sift you as the wheat. And here we have the association, as you know, with the parable about this fire and the burning of the tares. Well, we see that they are seeking to burn also. But as you know, who they believe the tares are just isn't so. And it's going to connect further with their coded rantings about this Ergot. And when we look into the Ergot and review this with the parable of Jesus Christ's words, and then look into the meaning of Ergot as a fungus, and then compare it to this fungus that's associated with this first cup in my drawing here, the two towers. That's what those two mushrooms represented, the two towers. And you could see it like this, guys. And keep in mind, I mean, I'm not, right now, I'm preparing you for what you're going to see. I'm not really giving the breakdown. I'm just showing you where the breakdown's going to come from. I'm showing you what the breakdown is about. I'm showing you that there's no denying that there are two fires from the sky. Babylon, give unto her double. It's not God that seeks to destroy commercial Babylon, but God is seeking to end the reign of ecclesiastical Babylon, who is seeking to take its refuge on the moon. All of those that are associated with this plan to bring about this destruction and this fire that's associated with the killing of masses, amounts of peoples of this world, take heed. Take heed to my vision. Take heed to the words of Jesus Christ. Take heed to the many prophets and seers of the past, of which were stoned before me. Take heed to the truth, and find yourself not in the path of destruction. A very interesting fractal connection here I'm going to leave you with to ponder about wheat. Wheat must be milled first prior to cooking. Wheat must be milled first prior to cooking. And if you remember in Isaiah chapter 34, they plan on becoming fat with the fatness of the blood of these sinners. And if you look in Revelation, it's describing these birds of heaven who are coming down to eat the flesh of these people after this destruction. Revelation chapter 11, Revelation chapter 13, verse 13, Revelation chapter 17, verse 17. So wheat must be milled first. So the fractal is them bringing their millstone to mill this meat before it can be consumed by their birds of heaven. So you see that the towers come down, and have an incredible variable association with oppositions, and these oppositions will relate us back to the knowledge of good and evil, the relationship with the material offer of the material knowledge to man being associated with the towers being represented with world trade of material goods, of which we see is what has been offered to material Babylon, of which material Babylon has grown off of that fruit. But we still have the association of the two oppositions. So the two oppositions between good and evil, black and white, can be easily summed up between light and dark, which would give us spirit and material. We know that the material is the 666. It's the carbon, okay? It's also associated with this mark of the beast because he seeks to fulfill himself in a material way. And this whole orchestration of material Babylon to set the confusion of the children of men, of which they could foster this deception, and then at the same time teach their initiated ones in the hidden doctrines of the occult to produce this fallen being, while we supposedly were lulled to sleep with these material visions of sugar plums dancing in our heads. You know, all of this material gifts from the north that Satan Claus offers the children of the world, all of these plastic toys of emptiness. They seek to keep us all busy in this commercialism so that at the same time they can do their great work unbeknown to us to produce this being into the realm. So commercial Babylon has been created for this specific purpose, to confuse the very powerful minds of the potential of mankind, so that the majority of mankind can never reach their true potential, that they're always caught in confusion, they're always caught in the material things of the world. And you'll see that the parable of Jesus Christ, the parable of the sower, the parable of the seed, the connection with the wheat is all going to explain that in perfect accord. So let's not forget what I did some time ago, a verse describing this sleeping baker and about this leaven that has destroyed the whole lump. And this sleeping baker is waiting for something. He's waiting for this destruction of the leaven so that he can rise. Who's the sleeping baker? Well, the sleeping baker is associated with the devil. Exactly right. It's associated with the verse that we saw in the book of Luke that is describing Satan as the one who is seeking to sift this wheat. Just as he is associated, Revelation chapter 13, verse 13, this false fire from God that is about this false burning of the peoples of the world, of which they consider are undesirables. So understand this. We've got every possible view from every video series I've ever done will come into full circle. It's going to come full round and all tell you the same thing. So get ready for it. And in order to kind of get you ready for it, I'll show you something now that we're going to look into further on the Elijah Fire from the Sky video number 10. And remember Ephah from the book of Zechariah describing the woman in the Ephah. And I told you that this Ephah being associated with the basket is being associated with the vessel. This being associated with false Israel going to the moon, that very base, that very place of Shinar. Now listen to Ephah here real close. Personal name meaning darkness. Okay? That's real important because it's going to connect in a double meaning here that's going to fulfill. So first off, we have Ephah as a personal name meaning darkness. Now don't forget, as I said, Zechariah chapters 2 and 3, I think it was. And let me just simply go there now, because I don't want you guys to be confused. I know that this is a lot of information. And my might help to kind of to see this. Wow, there's Hosea, man. I'll tell you, when y'all guys see this, there's just so much. I'm overwhelmed. I'm overwhelmed with how much truth the Spirit of Truth is revealing to me. I'm just overwhelmed with it. I have a hard time of pacing myself in trying to show you guys all of this. I really do. So it's going to be Zechariah chapter 5 is what it's going to be. The visions of the flying roll. We know that the flying roll is this judgment. It's this word. It's the millstone. And we find that, as we've already looked at it, declared right here. A roll in scripture symbolism means the written word, whether of God or of man. Okay? So, of course, they are judging us with this dead letter. The letter is what requires our death, as it is written to them, and then so they commit the act. So we see that after this roll go forth, then we see that they head on out, that they plan on going somewhere. And this connection with the Ephah is all about it. An Ephah goes forth, and it's lifted up. There's this woman. Now we connected that to Revelation chapter 12. Okay, the woman in the Ephah is Israel. Ezekiel 19 would have clarified this woman of Israel, the mother of Israel, as Ishtar, this blood vine, of which we see clarified further in the book of Jeremiah. This association with the queen of heaven, the queen of night. And he said this is wickedness. That's exactly right. It's the same wickedness that we see in Revelation chapter 12 that people are trying to teach you are associated with the true and living God. And he said, this is wickedness, and he cast it into the midst of the Ephah, and he cast the weight of the lead upon the mouth thereof. So we have this especial wickedness also that accompanies this Ephah to the moon, to this place of Shinar. Well, she's this woman in travail, right? She's about to give birth. Well, she's in possession of the beginning fruition of this fallen prince's identity into material form, as I told you, CERN has been so diligently working on here. Now, they've already revealed that they found the God particle, and remember, God created man from the dust of the earth, particle dust. So what did they say now? They said now that they need the dark matter. Well, the dark matter, you can find that on the dark side of the moon, because it's going to be associated with this Ephah, just like you see being associated with darkness. And it's also going to be associated with grain, and then it's going to associate with ergot, because this ergot is actually this blackness that grows on the wheat. The blackness is the darkness, and you're going to see all this explained. So Ephah, personal name meaning darkness. So where is Israel going again? To the moon? Could it be possible that this Ephah is going to the dark side of the moon? All in connection with this dark matter that's associated with the propaganda of this discernment of CERN to produce this God particle into our world? And then as we go down further, the second association of Ephah that connects us with this understanding comes into view. An entirely different Hebrew word with a different first letter lies behind the English Ephah as a dry measure of grain. What? Dry measure of grain? Well, dry measure of grain would mean no water. And then that would connect us to Ezekiel chapter 19 that describes this blood vine Ishtar is in a dry and a thirsty place. That's right. And then that would mean that they're devoid of the water word of Jesus Christ, because they are burning with this fire of the false doctrines of the fallen Lord. Would it not? An entirely different Hebrew word with a different first letter lies behind the English Ephah as a dry measure of grain. It is 1/10 of a homer and equal to one bath of liquid. it is also equal to 10 homers. 10 homers, well, isn't that the 10 tribes of Israel? That's right, the 10 northern tribes of Israel that are associated with false Israel, that are associated with Ishtar, that's further associated with Enki and his number of 40. Thus, it is about 40 liters. Then, of course, we know a liter is a measurement in term of water or liquid. And then we know that Enki is also this Leviathan or this water. Ephraim that's going to the dark side of the moon. Now, go ahead and turn on your classic rock radio stations right now, and you can hear them talk all about going to the dark side of the moon. And songs that might not necessarily say the moon, but they say, big old jet airliner, don't carry me too far away. Because basically, here is where they got to stay. So they're not going too far away, but they need this big old jet airliner to carry them away. In other words, this Ephah, this vessel, to carry them away. And as you see now, this wheat, as they see themselves, we see that the Ephah is also associated with what? A measure, even a dry measure of grain. Now, just like I told you, they consider themselves to be the true wheat, and then they consider us to be the tares, and they are going to divide themselves and bring themselves to this pleasant place that we see that's associated with chapter 9, verse 13 of the book of Hosea, I think it is, that describes Ephraim shall bring his children, or Ephraim shall be planted in a pleasant place while he brings his children to the murderer. And as you see, my drawing fulfills that. There's Ephraim. There is that tree of Israel. Also, Ephraim being associated with the growing grain. The name Ephraim means to pasture land, which would successfully fulfill us with Shinar and Sharon, the field of, the plain of, which would connect us to the underworld of the abyss, which would connect us to their supposed Zion of up above, of which Zion itself in its earliest rendering means a dry place. You don't believe me? You don't believe me? I mean, you guys hearing all this? You guys hearing all this, huh? Ephah means darkness, and this darkness is going to manifest with these shadow agents. That's right, and it's going to manifest with the dark side of the moon. It's going to manifest with this ergot that is grown on the wheat, that of course is sown by Satan to mix his children in amongst the true believers of God. You're going to see how that's fully being manifested on this channel, that these people, these pretenders, are trying to mix themselves in amongst the true believers. And we're going to see that that's what these parables are really bringing to light. And you can doubt me now all you like. The agents and then the people that are sincere, wow, you're going to see even this word